What's going on, you guys? Star Wars Rebels is almost at its point of conclusion, but in our latest trailer for the finale, we see a new ship for the Imperials, and it's got a lot of buzz going on right now, so I thought I'd talk with you guys about it today. So if you're not familiar, we're talking about this little ship that's barely shown down here in the corner, and this ship is looks smaller than an Imperial Star Destroyer, although granted everything's smaller than an Imperial Star Destroyer. And basically a lot of people started saying Dreadnought, Dreadnought, Dreadnought. But I've also heard some people suggest it's the Crabbok class light cruiser. So I'm kind of going to look at those and then go back to it. So I think it might be a Dreadnought, but we're going to look at this new ship. And also I'm just going to cite like design differences. So the Crabbok is a little bit smaller and the Dreadnought's a little bit larger, so it really depends on the frame. So here's a Crabbok. One of the key things that the Crabboks have is they are similar kind of in shape in that they're just, you know, long and kind of rectangular. But the engines on the Crabbok kind of cant downward on the back, and you see this across multiple depictions of the Crabbok. Back here, it's canted a little bit more downward. Although this one's a little more shaped like a Q-tip. But if we look at a Dreadnought, we're getting a couple of things that are a little bit more different. I mean, it's still that rectangular kind of shape, but we're getting these little apparatus here at the top of half of the engines on the back, and we see that a little bit more. And we see a little bit of, this is a slightly different depiction, but it's still you're kind of seeing that. And then if we go back to the first picture, you see those right here on the top of this ship, and also the raised rear section. In almost every version of the Dreadnought, the rear section is raised, elevated a little bit higher, whereas it's not quite so much on the Crabbok. So I mean, it's a little bit, but not as much. So I really think that what we're going to get to see is a Dreadnought. I'm pretty sure this is a Dreadnought, which, if it is, opens up a whole bunch of stuff. First off, it seems appropriate. And that's what I want to talk about. So let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think it's actually a Dreadnought, or do you think it's a Crabbok, or do you think it's something else altogether? Like, do you think that's like maybe the Carrion Spike or something like that? But what's really exciting about this is if it's a Dreadnought, then there's a whole bunch of stuff that basically they're pulling another chapter from Heir to the Empire. So they're pulling all right, maybe the Katana fleet is going to become a thing. Maybe they're going to recanonize. First off, if they're recanonizing Dreadnoughts, that's awesome, because it's a cool ship with a cool story, cool history behind them. The Katana fleet would be great. That could also get us Garmbel Iblis recanonized and, you know, officially brought back into the modern story, because he is sorely missing and he deserves to be in on this. But it also could spell potentially the destruction of Thrawn, which I'm really don't want to happen in this Rebels finale. Thrawn must survive, like everybody else, maybe short of Ahsoka, but Thrawn's got to survive. Like out of all my favorite characters people that I need to see live and go forward, Thrawn is very close to the top of the list. He may be the top of the list. He's got to survive. So if they're trying to pull too much stuff from the Heir to the Empire trilogy, then it makes me fear that they're going to end up seeing Thrawn die. Because we already have Rook, we already have a prophecy of Thrawn's defeat, which doesn't necessarily mean he's going to die. But now we've got something else. Granted, it's from these guys were introduced in the second book of the Thrawn trilogy, and he doesn't die until the end, but these played a part in it. So if we see Garmbel Iblis, that's going to be awesome. I don't think this means we're going to see other things. Like, I don't know if we're going to see Talon Card or Mara Jade, especially since Mara Jade, being a grown-up this far into it, might not really tie in with people's wishes for her, and if she's going to end up with Luke Skywalker or something like that. But this is just really exciting. So one of the things also that I think is kind of interesting about this is that there's only one. At least we only see one. So that's another thing I want to talk about with you guys in the comments too. Do you think that we're just going to see like a single Dreadnought? Do you think it's going to be one of those ships that's like in the background that they don't really talk about? We've seen this before with the Brahatok or the Dornian gunships. We've seen them in the background in the original trilogy. We've seen them in the background of Rogue One. We've seen them in the background of Star Wars Rebels. I want to see a Dornian. I want a story behind where they came from, and I really don't like that they will bring in new ships and not even tell you anything about them. I love when they talk about the new ships. Like I loved the episode with the interdictor, and that they explained the interdictor, and then they've used it again a couple of times in the in the future. I like when they name ships. Even with the Architans, at least they'll refer to them as light cruisers, and they acknowledge that that ship is there, and they'll talk about it. And so I'm really hoping they do that with dreadnoughts, if indeed they are dreadnoughts. Or do you think there's something altogether different? But I definitely want them to acknowledge this ship, talk about this ship, and maybe dive into the history. Do you think the Peregrine will be there? Do you think it'll be a different fleet? Do you think it'll be the Katana fleet? I don't think it would be that hard for them to pull out. It's like, maybe Thrawn is on to them, and they're gonna try to do something, and they're like, look, the rebels have countered our large Imperial Star Destroyers. They're able to fly right past us. What I have put together is a much smaller fleet of ships that, whatever, like a larger, more of a spider web. So maybe something like that will happen. I'm just curious what their entire role is going to be, because at least in this shot, they're facing away from the planet, just like, like all the other ships. So it's not like, the Star Destroyers here and how Dreadnought's like going a different way, So, but I guess my point being is this doesn't seem like it's a rebel Dreadnought. And if you've read Heir to the Empire, you know that both sides had dreadnoughts, and it was, and that's another thing that adds to the appeal of this ship, is it's a ship that both sides use. Both sides had several of them. Actually, the Empire had more, a lot more. But like there was this, I don't even, off the top of my head, I don't remember how many in total, but I believe it was something like 100 ships. And the Rebels only ended up with, I think, like 8 of them, and the Empire got all the rest. But it's a multi-faction ship, and so at least from the books. And so this has a lot of gaming implications as well, especially for Star Wars Armada. Could we potentially get our first multi-faction ship pack? How awesome would that be? It'd be another medium ship for the Rebels, which would be huge. More medium ships all around would be great, just because we have so many. In Star Wars Armada and most gaming, ships are either usually really small or really, really big. And there's not a whole lot of in between. So having some more medium ships kind of flushes out the visual aesthetic as well as game mechanics as well. So I'm really, really hoping that it's a bigger. And that's something else we need to think about, is the depth perception here in this particular shot. You've got this one Star Destroyer right here that's like in close to the camera, so it's really large. Then you've got this other one a little bit farther back, and that one's pretty small. Now this light cruiser, a light cruiser is not half the size of a Star Destroyer. So this tells me that this light cruiser is a little bit closer than that Star Destroyer. Like that Star Destroyer is slightly more in the background than this light cruiser is. Because the light cruiser should be like maybe, if it was right next to that Star Destroyer, it'd only be about half that length-ish. And it looks like 2 Gazantis up here, and then maybe another Star Destroyer up here. But my question is, how far in the background is this Dreadnought, or this ship here? I'm hoping it's kind of far back there, probably about as far back as this Star Destroyer, because this should be, we can't quite see how far off the tip goes, but this should be, about almost half the length of that Star Destroyer, give or take a little bit. Not, that would be good. That would work really well for a medium ship. If it's a small, smaller than an Architan's, if it's really close to the foreground and it's, like Gazanti sized, then that's going to be a shame, because that's like more similar to like the Carrack as far as sizing. So, but super excited to finally find out more of these. So the big speculations right now is it going to be talked about? Is it actually the Dreadnought or the Carrack or something else? Well, I guess that can be point 2. The third point is, how many are they going to have? And then the fourth point is, what else from Heir to the Empire are they going to bring out? Now, this is the finale of Star Wars Rebels, so there's a whole lot of stuff that they can potentially do here to really make it exciting. And if there's one thing that Rebels has done, is like their big episodes tend to be really, really big. And this is the one, like, last game of the year, can't hold anything back now, if you don't mind the Waterboy reference. But, yes, let's bring on the Katana fleet. Bring on Garm Bel Iblis with a couple more. What I am expecting, though, and this is going to border into predictions, is that the rebels aren't going to actually be able to win. Like, they might win on some level, but they're not going to win like on a military level. They're not going to outsmart Thrawn or defeat Thrawn in combat. I mean, because that's the whole, that would negate the significance of Rogue One and it being the rebels have won their first major victory, or their first victory rather. So there's potential ways that they can have a victory as long as it's not like a military victory. So they can potentially have a moral victory, or they can save people, or they can have a spiritual victory, or maybe convince Thrawn to join them and go to the unknown regions and start the next trilogy of movies that's going to be Thrawn and the Yuzan Vong and the lost gray Jedi tribes of Ahsoka and her Padawan named Crabbok with lightsaber nunchucks or something like that. We're just completely going crazy there. But let me know what you think about this. Which ship do you think it is? How many do you think they're going to have? Are they going to even talk about it? Or is it... I really hope it's not one of those ships that just stays in the background and is ignored, because that would be a little bit of a letdown. You think we're going to see any more surprises, too, especially ones from Heir to the Empire? That would be awesome. Let me know what you think, guys. Still time to enter the other giveaway. So I, got to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this one of my videos. I am a little bit behind on that, but that will be coming out very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.